Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Good evening. Legislators. It's voting time. I'm your host, Ed McQueen, and I'm co-host April Garner to be with everybody else. Just want to say good evening to our audience, and we really appreciate you being here with us to enliven us with some feedback on our topic today. It's a critical topic, and it involves something that's going on in the country right now, and in our state, and 32 states, by our understanding, of involving voting rights for Blacks. Okay, so we want to highlight and bring up to speed our viewers, and in fact everybody, to let you know what's going on, and I don't know what we're going to do about it, but maybe this discussion could ensue onto some strategies and how to combat or address this critical issue of, which is what our topic was in our promotion, was suppression of the Black vote. Okay, I'd like to begin by just showing you a little clip as to how critical this thing is. And I was on the news just the other day, and we thought it would be fitting to kind of in our show this evening with that. Okay, so let's go with it.
State legislatures have already introduced 165 bills, 165, to restrict voting access just since last month. Joining me now is Vann Newkirk, senior editor for The Atlantic, whose new piece is part of Inheritance, The Atlantic's project to elevate underreported Black history, and Mark Elias, attorney and founder of Democracy Docket. And Vann, first of all, thank you for your piece. American democracy is only 55 years old and hanging by a thread. It was so good. You hinged it on your mother's experience. When you see this kind of a throwback, an immediate pushback against an election in which people of color were decisive, does it feel to you like that history that you wrote about is an ongoing project and not at all over?
Yeah, I think the point of the piece is that I don't know if we can call it a throwback. It is just part and parcel of how people have interfaced with Black folks voting in this country forever, especially in the last 50 some odd years. This is the pushback against the Voting Rights Act, the push to roll back the Voting Rights Act. Those were birthed with the Voting Rights Act. And this entire sort of regime of changes that states are trying to get approved to, I guess, curtail what was record Black minority turnout. Those things are things that have been circulating around for years in intellectual circles. And really, I think, again, the seeds were planted as Fannie Lou Hamer made that speech in 1964. And so, yeah, I wrote about my mother. Go ahead.
No, go on.
Yeah, I wrote about my mother. She passed away 3 months ago. And the thing that really strikes me about talking about her life is that she was born, she passed away, she was 56. And so she was born before, I would say, America had any type of real democracy. And so, yeah, it's fragile.
Yeah, I kind of like just wanted to put that clip in there, and just put something for us to feed off of. Secondly, I just wanted to convey the importance of what they were just talking about, which was our topic, the suppression of the Black vote. So, having said that, to our viewers, our guest today, of course, April. April, you're muted, April. It's okay. Mr. Cedric Lane Spain, he's uh, the I keep getting mixed up on your title, Cedric, but when we get to you can explain it to us better. You got there's so many acronyms you got fed up in there, but but nevertheless, that doesn't diminish your importance, okay? And it's highly effective. And this Elizabeth Pryor, she's the second vice chairman of the Oregon County Democratic Party. Is that correct, Ms. Pryor? Okay. She's obviously not hearing us. She must be on mute. Okay. Pryor, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to both of you to the show today, and we want to again, like I said, we want to make sure that what the outcome of this discussion hopefully could be appealed, be in an appealing form to not just the educational status quo, but to Joe Sixpack, everybody. Okay, we want hopefully you can highlight on how this voter suppression is taking place, if you know about it, and to what extent that you know about it. My understanding, based on the clip that we just saw, was 33 states. That's a lot of states that they're trying to introduce some kind of legislation in their parliaments that would ultimately suppress or make it difficult for blacks to vote. Cedric was kind of moving himself out for a while. We understand he is having some technical difficulties. Okay, I'll get him back.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're back, Cedric.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Cedric, could you begin by giving us some highlights or an overview of exactly what's really taking place and how the impact has been so far?
Yes, thank you, Brother McQueen and Sister April. Good to see my colleague with the Horry County Democratic Party on tonight, our second vice chair. I am Cedric Blaine Spain. I'm the state executive committeeman for the Horry County Democratic Party. I have the privilege of serving as the state executive council member for the 7th Congressional District of South Carolina. I also serve respectfully on the board of state canvassers for municipal primaries for the 7th Congressional District, also among other committees. But my humble duties here tonight is to share with you, as Brother McQueen says, how the voting laws, after a historic turnout, increased mail voting in 2020. State lawmakers across the country are pulling in opposite directions by introducing restrictive and expansive voting legislation that would impact our ability to do mail-in voting, going what we haven't adopted here in South Carolina yet in the legal terms, early voting. So it's called in-person absentee here in the state of South Carolina, but as it's a form of early voting. So all of that is under attack because of the turnout. We know some over 80 million votes that President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris received. And then as a result of what happened in Georgia, Georgia going blue, and the record turnout that many states now, as Brother McQueen says, all of these states have introduced legislation, over 165 bills, and actually it's there and it's climbing to turn back the hands of time. That's why we see the need that we do need the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed in our state Congress, not just states, I'm sorry, in our U.S. Congress. We need them to pass that immediately so we can help, curb some of these things that many states are doing. And I'm gonna tell you the truth of the matter is, it's because of the black and brown vote that came out in record numbers in 2020.
So, Ms. Pryor, you're the second vice chairman, vice president, right, of the
Yes.
Horry County.
Mhm.
Okay, glad to hear me. So could you give us an overview of your function there with? Yeah.
You're fading in and out on me, but you want me to? What we're trying to do in the Horry County Democratic Party right now is that we've just come through the 2020 election, and the day of January 6, 2021 is a date that we should never forget because of the lies that were spread by the failure of the president and believed by his followers that the election was stolen, and the strategic organization of groups like the Proud Boys, QAnon, and other white supremacist groups. An insurrection took place on Capitol grounds. 5 individuals lost their lives, Capitol Police were injured, offices of our elected officials were breached. So there is more than a need for Democrats to get to work, it's a necessity. Ideally, HCDP would like to reach every Democrat in Horry County to convince them to become active Democrats. We want to work with community organizations and churches. We're working to reach those in rural and underserved areas of Horry County. Next year in 2022, there are county, state, and gubernatorial elections, and we need Democratic candidates. We will continue our voter registration efforts and GOTV, making sure that every voter votes and that every vote counts. We have Democratic clubs in Horry County and committees such as voter protection that need Democrats. HCDP is not too proud to ask for people to become involved. Those who want to work to see change come. We cannot do it alone. We cannot change Horry County or the state of South Carolina without all Democrats working together. If there is anyone listening who does not know, the Horry County Democratic Party has a full-time office located at 311C Beatty Street in Conway. The telephone number is 843-488-4237. That's 843-488-HCDP. We have a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and a website at www.horrydemocrats.org to learn more about the party. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, fundraising efforts have been limited. We need monies to support our Democratic candidates, to train candidates, to support getting out a clear message of Democratic values and goals, and we need money to support the office. And we need to remember that there is strength in inclusivity. All Democrats are welcome if they want a better life. If that's the goal for you, your children, and your grandchildren, please join the Horry County Democratic Party. We are going to be active. We're going to see us not only in election year, you're going to see us when it's not election year so we can reach voters and reach the people.
What's that address again, Ms. Pryor?
I'm sorry?
What is that address again?
311 Beatty Street in Conway.
What is it?
311C.
Beatty Street in Conway.
Hey.
I just want to say one other thing too before we go on. Is this evening they commemorated and remembered the 500,000 people that have died because of COVID, and I would like to just bring that up and mention that because of failed leadership, some people did not have to die.
So this could be directed to either of you two. What how has the COVID impacted y'all's efforts? You know, to reach your goals and to carry out your strategies for Horry County, especially.
Especially, one of our major fundraisers, the shore dinner, was canceled because of it, and also we had another fundraiser, the golf outing, was canceled this year because of it. It has really impacted us greatly because there's no interaction, there's no one-to-one, and we're trying to find out how to do things. And we need any suggestions on how to raise money for our Horry County Democratic Party. We will take anything that you can give us. We need it because we have to get Democrats elected in South Carolina. That's a desire of Horry County Democratic Party.
So any effort?
I'm sure our state EC has a lot more to say on that. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Yeah, thank you, Alessa, Mr. McQueen, and Ms. Garner. Also, what impacted us because of the failed leadership in the federal and the White House throughout the COVID-19, and certainly, like she said, not only the deaths on the state level, we had to cut our staff significantly for field work during this election period. We were prepared to do more, but because of COVID and because of the liability that we had, an insurance liability, they had to cut. So our field workers, some politics behind it too, I believe, but the field workers wasn't allowed to go door to door this time. So everything had to rely on virtual and outside agencies. And that's why it's so important what Alessa was saying about partnering together with the community and other groups and organizations, because where our field workers weren't able to go door to door, we had to rely on a lot of that for our connection and everything. And this is why it's so important to have a well-oiled machine, well-organized machine and everything, so we can get the job done. Because as we see right now, although the voters did turn out, and we certainly, again, I don't know if I've been on this venue since the election. I want to say we thank each and everyone that came out and whatever way you supported, whatever group or organization, even this venue that allowed us in a sort of nonpartisan way to get the message out from our side of the political spectrum. So we thank you to the Whittemore Community Magazine. We thank everyone that came out and did. But now we said we got to work even harder, because that's what this show is about. And if anyone didn't know, in earlier this month, the South Carolina General Assembly, they elected all white judges. Not one black judge was elected in South Carolina, appointed to the bench, and to much of the dismay of the black lawmakers in South Carolina. So when we talk about voter suppression, when we talk about the ballot box and elections having consequences, this is one of the consequences when we do not elect people to office, and part of the voter suppression tactics. And we know that many of our black brothers and sisters, especially my black brothers, are caught up in the penal system. And when we talk about this and going before these judges, we have a lot of work to do here in South Carolina. And I say to a lot of times we think, and what's disheartening for me is because sometimes people don't know all what going behind the scene and everything. But when I hear different ones, like went and vote, like my family members and friends who voted in the Republican primary to help some of the legislators from Horry County, because they went to high school with them, went to college with them, and there's nothing wrong with them being your friend. But right now in the state General Assembly, they are proven not to be their friend, because it was their friends and some from Horry County that backed an all-white judge panel. Not one, even judges, African Americans, that were qualified to be judges. And we saw it last term, when basically a gentleman off the street that didn't even qualify to be a judge, never been a judge, no kind of experience, he was put ahead of an African-American male who had already been serving in a judgeship. So when we talk about voter suppression tactics, because when the Democratic Party fight these voter suppressions, we have to go before these same judges here in South Carolina, even the ones that Trump appointed, almost 300 judges during his administration. When we go in before the federal courts and all the way even to the Supreme Court, if need be, these are the judges, because South Carolina is one of the only few states where the legislators appoint the judges. They're not voted in. Our judges are appointed by the legislators, even the Supreme Court of South Carolina.
I think that's good to know. That's really good information to know. I had read that some time ago, but I wasn't sure that it was well fed out to the community. The fact that South Carolina is the only state where they appoint the federal judges, which means I'm not. I don't want to prejudge anybody, but that kind of preempts a favor to be given, before you appoint a judge. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it's up to an appointment for a judgeship, sounds to me like, if you do enough favors to the people who influencing the appointments, it's going to be they're going to be appointed. Just saying.
You're right on it. You own it. It's that dollar. It's that mighty dollar, and who you know at the top. That's what it's all about with them.
Right.
They claim it's not, but listen, if you don't know someone, and if you're not putting up the big money, the lobbying, the paid lobbyists, because what people don't know that's one part about lobbying. A lot of these guys, they pay their lobbyists to lobby other legislators to help get their co-sponsoring and votes on bills. So trust me, a lot of money go under the table, over the table, around the table to get these individuals elected to be judges. And some of them, like we said again, are not even qualified to serve in these positions.
Okay, so I guess my question is, after listening to what we apparently know about these tactics, what are we going to do about it? And what has the Horry County Democratic Party, as far as the county party, decided will be its role in making sure that these voter suppression tactics are eliminated or dealt with, or whatever the case is? Because I think we can sit here all night and talk about what we know, the judges, the lobbying, and all that other good stuff. But one thing that the viewers have to get out of this is what are some strategies, or what are some things that you all have been thinking about in terms of how to deal with it? Because I'm sure that I think that the misconception is that when it comes down to voter suppression, I think you're addressing what people don't really understand about it, is that it happens beyond the line that you stand in to vote. Okay. And by the time we address that particular piece of it, the damage is done, so to say. The judges have been appointed, the lobbyists have done their damage, or have done what they have been, asked to do, charged to do, or whatever. So how can communities who are impacted by voter suppression tactics reverse the damage? What needs to happen at this point?
One of the things they need to do is vote. We need to register voters. We have people in the rural areas of Horry County that have never been registered to vote, which we can't do it without voting. Our votes make sure that we get the Democrats elected, so they can change the complex of the temple of the legislature or anything else. We have to get people registered. We have to vote. That's the most important thing right now that we need to do, is get Democrats, people elected. And the only way you can get them elected is to have people registered and vote. A lot of people register, and if we don't make sure they get there, that's why GOTV, go out, get out the vote, is so important. Once you register to vote, we want to make sure that you go to the polls and vote. We want educated voters. And the only way we can do that is making sure that they know who they're voting for, who our candidates are, and that we have candidates, especially young African-American candidates. If we could just get them involved, it's so important to have them involved. If we could get our communities united so that we can get them involved, because it takes a lot of people. It takes a village to get people registered to vote.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a message that we've heard a lot. We've heard that in the past few years, past few elections, certainly have just beat that dead horse, especially in this last election. But I think that at this point, and I asked Cedric in the panel this last week when we had Mr. Robinson and Ms. Hickman on the Tuesday show that we did for the network group. Have you all taken a look at what your current tactics are and determined, what's needed to get out and do this? Because we can implore people to do it all day long. It doesn't mean they're going to do it. We've been doing that. We've been putting up posters, making calls, sending out emails, having live streams, and people are just not doing it. So it sounds like to me, it's the boots on the ground that's the part that's missing. And of course now Horry County Democratic Party is crippled by that because you don't have enough boots for the ground. You got, some offices that are vacant. I don't know what your volunteer campaign is like, but what have you all taken a look at in terms of what didn't work the last time and what we really need to focus on this time as far as your tactics? Because asking people to just go out and vote, we know that they're not gonna always follow through. We might get them registered, just like you said, but they're not going to show up to vote. So what are some things that you all have identified that we really need?
Go ahead, Stacey.
No. I wanted to answer your previous questions and someone, then I'll let Lester go with that. One thing we were doing, one thing what happens when legislation come up in committee, and sometime before it even goes to the floor for a vote, unfortunately, like some things already went to the floor. We as the Democratic Party, we have been online. We have been working, reading the bills and coming up and researching so that we can submit our suggestions or what we believe the way this should go to the Democratic House and Senate caucus. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of work that we do that behind the scenes to meeting our state chair and others. And we have been on conference call. We have been, hammering these bills out behind the scenes to see, hey, what is their approach? How can we mediate this? Because there's a conference committee. So a lot of things behind the scene deal with the conference committee as it move related to the coming to the public. And this is why we ask, because there's so much still that the voters can do, even calling. We ask and we try to put it, like you said, we put it on social media. Call your state representative, whether a Democrat or Republican, whether you voted for them or not. Once they're elected, you have that opportunity to call Columbia on lobby day and either say, vote yes for this bill or vote no. They have to record it. I called myself on several bills that have already come to the floor and say, hey, I'm Cedric. I live in District 58, Senate District 28. I'm asking my senator. I'm asking my House of Representatives. So there's still power in the voter. Even if the bill move out of in conference and move out of conference to go to the floor, unfortunately, like you said, that we can't do a lot in public. They won't even allow you in unless you are public speaking. They'll let you do it one at a time. So we can go to Columbia and being there in numbers and calling your representatives, send a strong message to them that we are for it. And so that's what we can do. And going to the piece, like you said, once we get out of this, then what we have to do, and you talked about it last time, sometimes we find ourselves reactive. And so we having to come back and say, listen, come on, y'all, this already passed. These judges are there. Some are going to be there for life. Now, what can we do now? There are going to be other judges retiring within the next 2 to 4 years and everything in the next legislature. So what we need to do now to be proactive for the next 2, 4, 50, 60 is, well, at least 20, 30 years, is make sure we elect men and women to office that have the people's interests at heart and doing the people's business and not their personal business. And I have to say again, with our Democratic Party, whether it be state and federal, through the years, our messaging have been lagging because those that are on those committees, a lot of times we are not the ones that do all the programming, all the messaging, and even at the table, if you don't have even enough people at the table within the Democratic Party, have you share your interests and really to merge the messages together, and just like a conference committee, then you sometimes we find ourselves fighting within because we're dealing with leadership that don't see the need for grassroots. We see people where we having to come to the table like, listen here, we need you to understand that the votes are in grassroots. The work is in grassroots. And then go back to what Alexa was saying. Then when we look at the data, that come in from these precincts, and I'm telling you, and I won't call the precinct team, but there's several precincts this election year when the statisticians did all the data and the polls on several of the African-American precincts in Horry County, they were dropped from the priority list because people won't go vote. You're talking about maybe about 1,500 African-Americans in a precinct, only 246 come out and vote. I'll be willing to take the blame for the Democratic Party because they don't see where we're strong. They say they don't see where our message is clear. They don't see what we're doing for the community. But it's more than an outside show. It's so much going on to keep this bureaucracy going that, we like to vote. We need you to vote. And when they look at the numbers, they said, hey, it's about 1,500 African Americans in this precinct. Only 246 came and voted. Only 300 came and voted. Over the years, they say, we drop you. We drop you from the priority list. So things go back to, we got to have something. And this is where we implore the community. Because even within, I'm kind of cheating on something from last week that we need to pick up tomorrow night. But this, I won't go there. We'll save that. But let me say this while we're here. When we talk about voter suppression, I want people to know out in TV land, virtual land, radio, however we come into you, that we cannot do this alone. No man is an island. We don't have all the answers. We serve because the people elected us to serve, and we try to do the best we can. Do we miss it? Yes, we miss it. But this is where we need the community to come in and undergird and come in with their ideas, to come in with that. Because we got some committees, where we searching for people to serve on, just as with the county, with the state. Do you know the state delegation has been pleading for months for people to even serve on the DSS board, on the library boards, different, even the local and state boards. There are several agencies, not only on the state level, that appoint people to boards and everything. So the thing is, when we are not at the table, we're on the menu. And so we have these boards, we have these commissions on the state and counties and municipal levels, but we need the community to be active. We need even Democrats. We know who are Republicans and who are Democrats. We see what is happening. We saw it 2 weeks ago in the city of Conway meeting, where one city official was up behind all the building. His name was up behind everything building up Conway and everything. And then you know what the planning director said? She says, oh, we didn't receive no calls from that community. And I'm going to say, as much as we may have our differences with different ones, they have it with me and everything. But I got to tell you, the representative, not so much that he represented the Black community, but African American, he spoke up. And the mayor spoke up, and others. And they said, oh, well, we didn't have any calls out of that community. So, April, to answer your question and stop talking, what we need to do when we put this information up, we need the community to call in. We need the community, whether it be on the federal level, state level, or in the local, what way the voters can take place is when we call it lobby day, call in and say, we disagree with this. And don't be no Sambo or no Samboline, and because they friends and eating shrimp with these people and going out and they friends, don't sit up there saying, child, I'll tell them not to call in. That's my friend. And now we flooding again in the County. I'm through.
Okay, Cedric, I'm getting some feedback from somebody by way of phone that there's an echo coming in your source of transmission there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Make sure you only have one thing open that's broadcasting the show. Like if you have it on your phone, make sure it's not running on your computer or anything else around you.
And I did have it out in silent. I thought I had it on silent. I'm sorry.
Well, we corrected that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we do have a comment, but I think you addressed this person's comment. But I'll put it up anyway. Okay. It's from Ms. Fuller, who said that what efforts are going on in the South Carolina legislature to suppress the vote, and what can the average citizen do to prevent this? I think you addressed that. Yeah.
They've already addressed.
Yeah, I did wanted to just let her know that.
Well, if she wants more specific outlet, may I read this? Legislators in 8 states have proposed bills to impose and increase strict limits on who can assist in returning voters' ballot, while South Carolina bill would impose a photo ID requirement for anyone returning any other person's absentee ballot. Also, witness signature have introduced legislation to make it harder to satisfy existing witness signature. South Carolina bill would require that you put your driver's license number or voter registration number on the envelope and everything. And if we saw what happened in the state of South Carolina, many voter registration offices have drop boxes. They were instructed by the General Assembly to lock those boxes, and they had a tent in Horry County out back where you either had to walk around or drive around to that person, and knowing you just drop it in the box. And then if that canary form wasn't filled out, if you was returning someone's ballot, then you had they weren't going to receive it. But now what they want to do, they want to make sure you show an ID. You just can't drop off a ballot. Even at the bank, even if you had the permission slip, you're going to have to now show an ID if it passes the state General Assembly. And with the witness signature, they're not removing the witness signature. They're making it harder. Because if you forget to put your voter registration number or driver's license number on it, they're going to throw out your ballot.
Wow.
So Cedric, in lieu of, in view of what has been said so far, and what has been expressed to me has been the difficulties that you've laid out that getting us out to vote, getting Black people out to vote. So April touched on it a little bit before. Now, that means that you have to really step up your game. It's going to require more funding in order to have, for example, transportation for people to you're going to take them to the voting polls. Okay, so if the state comes up with some kind of requirement, say yes, you got to have a vote, you got to have an ID, a picture ID, blah blah blah. Has that been happening us before when they put these restrictions on?
Yeah, yes, and our remedy is, thank goodness we are part of the state Democratic Party, because most time, even now, some legislation has already passed, and you saw where the courts has already struck it down. You find it in court, and so some of the legislation, even when these bills pass, because our General Assembly is pretty much controlled by Republicans. So what we'll find ourselves is in the courts of law for probably a pretty long time, but they will not immediately go into effect. Or if they try to go into effect, the Democratic Party, the state Democratic Party, as they did in 2020 with the witness signature. One judge said, okay, you don't have to have the witness signature on it because it's a pandemic and people not let people in the house. 2 weeks later, another judge put it right back on. And see, this is what happened with judges when, in that aspect too. So what happens, the Democratic Party will be fighting a lot of these legislation and bills that are passed in court, and we'll benefit from it because we are one of the 46 counties in South Carolina under the South Carolina Democratic Party.
Okay, I want everybody to just stay tuned with us because I have a suggestion when we come back on a break for some commercials. Is that okay?
Make it happen.
Put that thumb up. Okay, this is just a list of our some of our advertisers. One day we'll get them all on there. One day, okay. We thought it was inappropriate to add music to these right at the moment, but we don't want this to be a serious, okay? And it's just some of our advertisers, okay? This song. We'll get back to some more another time. Yeah, one of my suggestions is going to be, what about, you may have to raise some funds for this, but and you may have one on board, but a consultant to use to advise on virtuality. Okay, now that because of the COVID, a lot of things have to be virtual. maybe a consultant can come up with different ways to effectively use the virtual system now. What do you think? Do you have one on board that you can call on?
You're fading in and out. I didn't really hear you.
He's saying that he's suggesting that the county Democratic Party go with a consultant to help with like the digital or the virtual campaigns that you all may need to do. And his question was whether or not you thought of that as a way to, I guess, to try and meet the challenge of what's going on right now with COVID, since you may need to do a lot of this stuff virtually.
We're doing a lot of our meetings and everything virtually. Like our committee meetings and our club meetings, they're done virtually. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that's a given. You're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
But maybe they could use the virtual media platform to do fundraising, for example, or hire a consultant who may have some more concrete ideas than what we presented so far, in order to better make an effective use of virtuality. Okay, which is we have to use Zoom and live stream stuff like that. So, you know, what do you think about that? You're hiring a consultant to advise on that and devise ways to be more effective with your virtual, not just the meetings, but fundraising.
Fundraising?
Yeah, events, so forth.
State EC?
The who?
Yeah, yes, our communications team did have media consultant on board with them to help them out with communications and how to do some things different. But you brought up a valid point. We haven't hired one in totality for the party and everything. So you brought up a great point, great idea. And with Lester with her name on the ballot to run for chair, I know she's writing this down. So thank you for that that free consultant advice, Mr. McQueen. So thank you for that.
There's a comment in the thread. And the comment is reorganizing is needed. Do you think there needs to be some reorganization of the party in order to kind of assess the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats? We already know what some of the threats are. And, you know, I think it would be interesting because, you know, you don't want I don't think we want this to sound like doom and gloom for the Horry County Democratic Party. And I also think that people need to understand that while Black constituents are, especially in Horry County, typically vote Democrat and comprise the biggest, or I won't say the biggest, y'all can correct me on that, but comprise a large portion of the Democratic voter turnout. The Horry County Democratic Party also has constituents who don't look like us. So people who are, you know, a non-color, I guess you could say that. And so, you know, when it comes down to, you know, reorganizing, it sounds like to me there needs to be more unification as well within the party because, you know, and I think we kind of touched upon this too in our last little meeting. Surely we know that there are some issues within the Black communities, but you know, what's happening on the other side? I mean, because if they're organizing and they're getting their people out, is there not a blueprint that can possibly be used with the Black communities? And if not, then, you know, can we take a look at what the total organization is right now and see whether or not there's some things that need to be shifted a little bit so that you can kind of, you know, find out where we could be more efficient?
In this past election year, I found out that working with community organizations, such as the Horry County Coalition of Veterans, the Northeastern African American Alliance of Churches, I found out that they were very active in their communities, which was the outreach where we couldn't reach. They had people to reach, like in Atlantic Beach and other areas. They worked there, and we were able to get voters registered to vote. And that, again, is most important, that we have informed, registered voters and that they get out and vote. And we need communities, we need churches, to get involved because the large African American population and also in the white churches, if they get involved, that's a way that we can get people be informed, because you can't be an ignorant voter. You have to be an informed voter.
Right.
And if we put the message out, the Democrats suck at messaging. They just suck at messaging. If we can get the message out, our values, our policies, our procedures, all those out to people, keep getting the voters informed, we will be able to get people to come and say, well, we want to be part of the Democratic Party. And that's what very, very, very vital, that we get informed voters. And again, working with the community and our faith-based organizations, we can make a change. We can reach more people. And that's what we need to do. We get to get them involved. But we can register all the voters we can. But it seems like the Democratic Party basically shows up an election year. But there are things that take place outside of an election year that the Democratic Party has to be involved in.
Yeah, there's what I've learned is that there's a buildup and engagement that it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and I could thank Brother Blaine Spain for that lesson. And so, you know, to me, it seems like there's some things that, and I don't know if it, you know, a consultant could definitely do this type of a SWOT analysis with Horry County Democratic Party, especially now is what needs to happen. But the other part of it is that if you already know, for example, where your strengths are, like you just mentioned, a couple of organizations that are actually working, the opportunity is that presents itself is that we get more of those organizations involved. And, you know, even from the standpoint of how are they watchdogs for these voter suppression activities that are going on, because it sounds like, you know, you need a lot of people to cover a lot of bases, and, you know, only 2 people, you can't do it all. You know, you're going to Columbia and doing some things that are really heavily on the legislative side, when the boots on the ground, sounds like to me, needs to be more people like us, you know, who are able to kind of hold down the porch while you guys are out there, you know, doing what you're doing from that upper level. So I think for me, it's just kind of trying to understand how we can educate people more and get the information out. And I know you talked about having someone who handles your communication. And is that communication primarily social media, or, you know, is there like a communication plan? Do you have someone who actually puts together, you know, information and, you know, distributes it to the community so that we all know what's going on? Because a lot of times we're getting that information and it's like, you know, if something is happening, we're getting it the day before, or we get, and Cedric explained to me a long time ago that sometimes you guys don't know until the hours or the days before. But, you know, for the average person, if you want there to be some movement or some engagement, we have to plan a little. So even if you see something on the radar, how can we help to get that information out? Maybe, you know, using us more of a conduit for that kind of thing. But there's got to be something. I mean, because I think we're hearing the same things over and over and over again. And what we need now are solutions. You know, what we need, and especially to help move forward before the next election. Now's the time to do it.
Exactly, and that's why we have to have the Democratic Party not show up just on during election time. That's why it's so important that we reach out, but reach out and go out and have some way of reaching the rural areas. There are underserved areas right here in Myrtle Beach and Conway that we have not had contact with. I remember when I was canvassing for the Obama campaign in 2008, we went down Wright Avenue. And at that point in time in Conway, the houses were vacant, but we knocked on every door. But we can't do that because of that. But we can still use the social media. Like we have a newsletter that goes out. If people go online and sign up on our media, there's newsletters that go out every week. I believe, State DC, is that it? Every week it goes out? Every week it goes out. You can find out things that are happening in the Horry County Democratic Party, that happen every week. We have people that sign up for that. They could go on the website, the Facebook page, and look and say Horry County Democratic Party. It'll show you all the events that are happening.
And Sister April and to the listeners, if we made it sound doom and gloom, trust me, ain't no doom and gloom over here. with 127 precincts, eight counties in our congressional district, 46 counties in this state. There's no dull moment in Horry County Democratic Party. You just don't see all the excitement that go on behind the scene in these meetings. A lot of times, some of the young people, I laugh at them when they came on board, especially like the third vice chairs, because they're 18 to 36. And they're like, y'all meet when? Every Friday at 1 o'clock. I'm not meeting with y'all old folks every day. So we get that, but it's part of the bureaucracy of running a party. And so we have 120. We just don't start planning for election. Like right now, we just got finished with the 2020 election, going right into the gubernatorial election. So if I sound doom and gloom, it's no doom and gloom. Trust me. It's just the bureaucracy behind all of it that make this machine work for you. And so we don't bring you all of them. We shared some of the negative things, but trust me, we have over 9 clubs throughout this county that meet once a month. You have the South Enders. You have Alestis over the Carolina Forest Gems. I have the South Side Democrats here in town. We got the West Side Democrats. You got the North Strand Democrats, the Northwest and Lower. Somebody say, why all of those clubs? One thing, our county is so large. We have drinking liberty for those that only want to drink. You got some people, they just want to drink, drink. So we have, they call it in Myrtle Beach, drinking liberty. All of these mechanisms of the party help build up and supposed to build up the Horry County Democratic Party. But what we found out that most time, those that go to South Enders, sometimes they don't drive at night and everything. They only want to stay with the South Enders. So most times when you talk about that unity, and that's what we've been dealing with for years, and everything, and was so proud of the late Benny Swans, because when he came in with his administration, that was one of his focus, was how can we unite all of these 9 or 10 clubs and committees across the county for at least once every month or every 3 months to come together and let's strengthen the party. Because everybody tended with their personalities and who they like. So I can say there are a lot of things going on. The communications committee, we have an outstanding communication committee. The chairperson, current one who's retired he's leaving because he want to enjoy retirement. He worked on Capitol Hill in journalism as a speechwriter and everything. So he's been heading up our communications. And if you go on our website and everything, you see it. It's just that what we bringing you, what you hearing is some of the parts that need to be all behind the scene, and where we need the community to come in. We need our people that's listening who is in journalism, and like Brother McQueen say, who's in consulting to know, listen, hey, none of us get paid for what we do. We do it to serve our party. We do it. Ms. Hickman says, our life platter is full. We pay to serve Horry County Democratic Party. No one gives us money for anything. We do it because we want our party to be better. We stay involved because we want the party to be better. We want to make sure that there is a black face at the table. And I'm not about just a black face, because they don't know. I'm going to speak out. I'm going to let them know I'm not just a black face at the table now. I'm going to let you know I'm concerned about my black community. And that's why we need the people, because one thing when I'm concerned about black and all, but certainly our black community, we concerned about grassroots, and where we're lacking a lot of times is in our grassroots efforts. And we need that. And that's what Stacey Abrams did. When they took the governorship from her, she didn't go in a corner. She said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to mobilize. And let's just like what Vice Chair Lester said, in Horry County right now tonight, we have over 45,000 unregistered voters, and look like you and me. And it wasn't the council, those divine 9 didn't go out. It wasn't because you didn't do your job, because even on your show, you told people to register to vote. You didn't tell them what way to vote. You encouraged people to get out and vote. But even after 2020, we still at over 45,000 people in this county. In this county, that's not registered to vote.
So let me, in the interest of time, let me, if I may, just let me spell out one of the comments from Ms. Falk, okay, who says, the question to the guest, are there any plans by the state Democratic Party to promote engagement of local Democratic parties, address the measures being introduced by state legislators to make changes in mail-in voting and in-person absentee voting, etc. Now, you may have touched base on a little bit on this before, but let me hear your take on that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. One thing we said, we know that our state legislators, we lost seats this past 2020. So where we don't have the votes to so much override it. So what we need the people is the voters. Once we know it's coming up on the floor or in another committee meeting, we need the electorate, those out in the community, to call into Columbia to their state house or Senate representatives and tell them, once we put the word out from Columbia, what way we're going to go on it. And most time that comes through our messaging from the top, because we do want to be unified. And right now, our state chairman haven't released all the details of these bills and where we're going at it, because we've pretty much been meeting, trying to come to a consensus on where we stand at it. We pretty much know where we are, but what we can do and need everybody to do is when we put it messages out on social media, but those have family members that may share it with them in the number so they can call in and tell them to vote no. But I can tell you again, as where it looked like it may pass, a lot of them may pass the state house, but we'll probably find ourselves in the court trying to seek some kind of remedy in the courts. But
so just
I'll answer their question.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully you did. Just out of blue, this maybe or may not be relevant, but numerically speaking, now how many black legislators in South Carolina do we have at the State Department? I mean, in the state legislature, black. Approximately how many can hear me?
Say that again. Yeah. I can't. I'm not hearing you clearly.
Approximately how many black state legislators are there in South Carolina?
He asked how many black state legislators are there?
And between the House and the Senate?
Yeah, just in totality. Go ahead.
We're somewhere, this year we lost about 4. We're somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60.
60
but it's not, but that's in both houses. We lost 3 in the Senate. So that they are taking the Senate. The House, they beat us in the House by 100 and some votes in the House. So on a simple majority, just as they have it. So we don't have the strength in numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. And we lost seats in the Senate. So we definitely needed those 3 seats, but we lost them. And so we're nowhere near to have that simple majority, even in the state Senate.
Was that a narrow loss, or was that overwhelming of this? The losses that occurred. I'm trying to fix in my mind how to make some suggestions on how to.
It was a significant loss in the Senate, because that took us from where we needed to be. We thought we had those seats that would have an impact that they wouldn't even be nowhere, to get that 2/3 or whatever they needed. But in the House, we lost a few of them in the House. But it's just the way that gerrymandering, the way the districts are set up, that's another negative thing for us. While we may have the numbers in people, but the way the districts are set up, it made it even harder to elect some Democrat or re-elect them.
Okay, so are we fighting the gerrymandering now in a court process, or how are we tackling that? How are we addressing that issue of gerrymandering? Because that's happening in every state.
I'm sorry.
No, yes. Well, we do have a committee. We do have a committee against gerrymandering. That committee is working now, and they have even been here in Horry County looking and speaking with different ones of different organizations about how to remedy and making sure that we get fair lines this year when it's time to redraw the lines.
Does it have to reach the Supreme Court? I mean, the state Supreme Court for that to make a decision on that, or if that's just by overwhelming voting majority in some.
That's a voting majority because of that striking in the Voting Rights Act and that pre-clearance. South Carolina is no longer under the pre-clearance anymore, so they can just do it. We can still fight it in court and everything, but right now the legislative side The Republicans it was against us then, but we have, like you said, it's a larger number of them than us now. But there is a conference committee and when you join the district lines. And I was privileged in 2020 to be part of those in their mapping room. We submit our maps from the Democratic Party. The Republican Party submit their maps. Then you have to come back to a conference committee and try to remedy. But then most time, because they have more votes on the committee than Democrats, they pretty much get their way. They'll give in somewhat. That's where we're fighting, but we're gonna need the community to be involved. Even at that, I don't know this year, they probably not won't even be public hearings because of COVID. But we'll get you the word soon as there's some kind of hearings, whether they be online or whatever, so people can submit in their suggestion or opposition to the maps or whatever's going on with redistricting. As soon as they start letting us know about the public hearings.
Wow, looks like we're out of time out of this important topic here. I don't know what to say. I don't want to take people past their time, and then I know our viewers probably feel the same way. But we're out of time, and I do want to thank the both of you for coming and enlightening the community and the state. And the nation, because we're on Facebook, on what's happening in the voting issues in South Carolina and Horry County in particular. And I commend you, Cedric, for articulating those issues quite well, as usual.
Mr. McQueen, may I say something? Because my mind just went back to something Sister April said about the reorganizing piece. This is what we're doing now. It was because Horry County put forth legislation to our state convention to move the election of chairs to odd years, because normally we elect chairs in the even year, the same time we have elections. So this is, Sister April, for those that when you ask that question, and every 2 years, next year will be reorganizing the precincts, electing precinct officers, and electing state ECs. We are up for re-election next year. This year it's the chairs. Next year it'll be state ECs. And it's never been a secret. It has to be in the paper. We always make it known that, hey, that's how we end up on your show, because there was an ad out there saying we looking for people to run for office. It's nothing here. The Democratic put it out. If you want to be a part of the process, if you want to be at the table, hey, the door is open for you to come to the table. So this year is the electing of chairs, the chair and the 3 vice chairs. Next year is open for state ECs for re-election, for election, and organizing precinct. We have 127 precincts. So when you talk about reorganizing, everyone is welcome to the table for reorganizing. It's never been a secret process. It's just that when it's time to come to the table, you end up with the same people from the same precincts and the same funds every time. Because when people find out they don't get paid for this, they're like, I'm not doing it.
Right.
Absolutely. Y'all, thank you. It's time to leave the table now. We're at the table. Time to leave the table. But before I go, I do want to make a special appreciation to one of our commenters who gave us an update on the question I asked about the number of blacks in the Senate and the number of blacks in the House of Representatives. And Ms. Carolyn Hickman Williams said that in the Senate there were 11 blacks, and in the House of Representatives there were 31. She says. So thank you, Ms. Hickman Williams, for that information, and appreciate that. And to our viewers, again, we'll thank all of our viewers, and thank you, Ms. Cedric Blaine Spain and Ms. Lester Pryor from the Horry County Democratic Party.
Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure. And you can always use this platform to articulate whatever the community, the needs of the community politically, and I'll take that back. Articulate the needs of the community. We let them consume. We let them interpret if it's political or not. So, anyway, thank, of course, our co-host April. Thank you so much for introduce everybody to our new World magazine. And you're going to see a bit more about that probably in our next show. And it's already noticeable on our magazine, okay? So, God bless. And we hope to see you all next week, same time, right here on Facebook Live. And April, do you have any final remarks?
I do not. No, not at all.
All right. And now we'll see everybody next week. Okay.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host, Edward McQueen and April Garner.